Hey, I'm Casey Rucker. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I've got two daughters.
Hey everyone, I'm Hannah Fleece, a copywriter and content strategist. I've been working with Abby for over a year and I love her and I'm excited to be here.
Hi, everybody. I am Jill Marie Mokaya, and I am a freelance copywriter. I'm also an educator, a mom, and a wife.
Technically started my freelance business in July of 2019. So just over a year.
Officially, I started in January of 2020. Unofficially, I was kind of doing some other things in the fall of 2019, but I would say officially January. And that's around the time that I legitimized my business and established the LLC as well.
Okay, so before I came into freelancing, like immediately before, I had been a stay-at-home mom for, I guess, 3 years at that point. But before my first daughter was born, I did the whole path where you go to college. I went to grad school. Decided I actually hated what I had just spent the last 6 years studying. So I just kind of did the whole, I'm just going to get my corporate job and do that and retire and die one day.
I talked to a lot of people about what kinds of writing were profitable and like wouldn't leave you in a cardboard box under a bridge, and journalism came up a lot. So I kind of knew from the start of high school, halfway through, that I was going to go to school for journalism. So I geared all of my stuff, all of my extracurriculars and that kind of stuff towards getting into journalism school.
Well, I'm still maintaining a full-time job as an educator. So a lot of my business took off during our unfortunate Corona situation.
So part of it was a rather tumultuous election that we had in 2016. I was just watching the media and the press on both sides of reporting, and I just thought it was ugly and didn't want to be on call 24/7, doing cops and courts and that kind of stuff. And then when I married my husband, my first husband, we're still married, but like I like to remind him what's at stake. When I married him and we moved to Florida where he's stationed for the military, I knew that I needed to do something else. And then I almost immediately got pregnant with our twins, and I was like, okay, I need to do something where I can work from home that also, again, we want to avoid the cardboard box situation.
I really desire to have more time freedom for my family. I have two small kids that are age 6 and 2, and I really want to have a more flexible schedule where I'm able to be at home with them when they're not feeling well without having to beg an employer to allow me to have that time off. I also would love to pop in and have lunch with my oldest child. And I'm kind of tired of being told what to do. So I would really love to have more control over my schedule and over what I'm doing daily.
I always thought that freelance writers, how do I put this nicely? Were crazy because wouldn't you want to have the benefits of working a 9 to 5, and wouldn't you want to have the 401k and all of that kind of stuff? That's what I thought before. And so I always thought that I was going to end up at a newspaper somewhere, or maybe as an editor, and that was going to be that. But now I'm like, holy cow, I don't think that I could ever go back to a 9 to 5 because of all of the freedom that I have. I get to make my schedule. I get to take vacations when I want. Like I told you, I spend my entire day playing with my kids and pretending to cook, and then, work after they go to bed. So I really thought I was going to go the traditional route, but this is so much better.
I just kind of found out about freelancing, like not even trying to find a way to work from home. Someone had mentioned it on Facebook, and I'm like, hey, that sounds neat. Like I have skills of things I can do from home, and it would be nice to make some extra money.
So I knew it was like a thing, but I didn't know the scope of what you could do. So like I didn't realize that people had email writers, or like, it seems obvious, but I thought they would probably all do that in-house.
I stumbled upon the Free Mama, and that's when things started to click for me. And I said, you know what? Virtual assistant. I like the sound of that. I think I can do that. And so I just kind of interjected myself into Lauren's Facebook group and tried to soak up as much information as possible. I purchased her book, and I just started putting two and two together. And I was like, I can do this. Let's do it.
So when I first started freelancing, I really stuck with very basic tasks. So administrative, a couple of my first clients were managing his email, kind of like taking over a certain part of his email that was, he was getting a lot of like customer service type requests, and he just needed someone to answer those emails that came in. So super basic, like not anything I hadn't kind of done in my previous corporate jobs. Another thing that I was doing, I did a couple of different projects where I would research stuff for people. So all things that I already had the skills to do. So I wasn't worried about those. But when I looked at other things that people were doing, like some people were creating websites or doing like really technical stuff. I even saw a thing called copywriting, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what does that mean? I didn't know what that meant. And I just like those more specialized things, I didn't even like think about at first. I was like, I'm just going to stick with the stuff that I already know how to do, which you can certainly make money doing those types of things. But the more specialized stuff, I didn't even touch at first. I didn't think that it was something I even had time to learn how to do.
I started doing a lot of research. Google is my friend. So I started trying to figure out what I could make work with my skills that I already have without getting additional degrees or going into debt trying to purchase any type of big thingamajigger. So I did a lot of research. I did actually probably close to 6 months worth of research.
So it really was a fluke that I got into writing. I was speaking to a family friend who had a business, and he knows a lot of people. Business owners know a lot of business owners. And he and I were just talking about, he was like, hey, tell me what you're up to, and I can probably give you referrals. So we were talking about that. And somehow in the conversation, I was like, I think I'm going to start offering blog writing. And he was like, oh, well, I need that. And I was like, okay. So it kind of just like happened, kind of a fluke, honestly. And that was how I first started writing, as I took over. Actually, he didn't even have a blog on his website. So I blogged for him for a few months. It didn't really work out at the professional relationship, but I started realizing like, hey, I can charge like a lot higher of a rate for something like this than I could for answering customer service type of emails. Very shortly after that, it was kind of like a domino effect, because I had just written a post on my own Facebook page, like my own personal writing about an issue that was important to me. And another friend reached out. She was a former coworker from years ago. We still kept in touch a little bit. She was like, I love what you wrote. I want you to write for my blog. And she's a photographer. And okay, I guess I do blog writing now. And like, I just kind of learned as I went. There was kind of a lifestyle blog, so really not a lot of research involved, but the other client I had did involve research. I just learned as I went. And like, I feel like that's the best way to do it. I mean, you can learn. I went to school for 6.5 years to learn this one particular skill, but eventually you have to do it and then pick up, like really hone in and like sharpen your expertise as you're doing it, instead of just trying to learn it forever.
Actually, writing has always been in my mind. Even as a young child, I remember having journals full of short stories that I would write, and I would literally pass them around in class and tell my classmates to comment on them and let me know if they liked my characters. What are their comments? I mean, I was supposed to be studying and paying attention to like math, but I was writing and passing that around. So writing has always been a love of mine. For many years, I thought, okay, I need to write a book. I need to put these skills to use somehow. But I couldn't narrow down the topic. I have a million ideas in my head. And like I said, I love to write. So I just kept saying, okay, it's not the right time. I don't know what I want to do with these skills. I feel like I'm not really using them like I should. And so copywriting really just, it just really made me feel complete in a way. I'm able to serve my clients and also scratch that itch I have of actually using my writing skills in a really profound way. So it is a win-win for me.
My first client ever in the freelance writing space was somebody I met and worked with and finished the job with before we ever met. And it didn't, I didn't realize that until a few days ago when I was thinking about it. But and this just like goes to show you that you will find clients in the most random places. So after church one Sunday, this girl came up to me, this lady that goes to our church was like, my sister's writing a book and she needs an editor. And I had done editing in journalism school and on my husband's papers for college. And so I was like, yeah, I can do that. Sure. How hard can it be? And I agreed to edit this 500-page book for $1,000 because I didn't know how much work would be involved. And it took a year. Actually, no, it was more like 9 months. It was basically a baby. It took forever to edit this book. And thankfully, the woman was gracious enough to say, holy cow, this is taking longer than we thought. And she actually doubled what she was paying me. So that was really generous of her. But I edited her whole book and now she's in the process of self-publishing it. So that's where I found my first ever client randomly. After I started working with you, I found my first client on Upwork, and it was a woman who, I don't know, her husband is like a millionaire probably, because she was going to pay me $150 to help her come up with the title of her book. And it took like half an hour. So that was my first client after we started working together, was through Upwork.
So I was blogging for an athletic event and a photographer. So totally not my niche now, but it was a foot in the door.
So people have a lot of opinions about this, which is interesting to me because I'm like, it's not your life. But so the first thing I would say before I tell you this is the best piece of advice I ever got was don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't go to for advice. So when you have people around you that are saying things like, that's a job, or aren't you worried about the benefits? Like, think, would I go to them for advice? The answer is probably no. So take their criticism and then throw it away. But for the most part, my husband, my parents, my brothers and sisters-in-law are all really supportive.
At the beginning, I felt a little scared. I felt a little apprehensive because I think now we live in an age where lots of people are working from home, and there's kind of a stigma because people automatically assume, or you think they're automatically going to assume that you're doing one of those things. And I have tried that in years past. And so like, probably nobody remembers but me, but I had this hang up like, oh, I can't be one of those people that just constantly posts about their business and all of that. So I really did stay really quiet at first. I posted about it and I made a business page, and all those like kind of things you think you have to do. I would post on my business page, little quirky little things that really were kind of a waste of time instead of just like going out and doing the work and getting the clients. But once I was focusing on one particular thing and not doing a little of everything, I felt a lot more confident to say, hey, I write. At first it was blogs, then I'm a copywriter. And then people like remember that. And if you kind of hang around the right people, you kind of make yourself known for that, even if you're brand new at it. I mean, you can say that you're a copywriter or you're a whatever, even if like you just decided that yesterday. Like you have to say it and make that known and then go forward and learn it and do the work and get the clients and the experience.
I was kind of nervous to kind of pivot into copywriting And I was trying to kind of work up the nerve to tell people, oh, here's another thing I'm doing. I felt like it might confuse people. I was kind of shy about it. But once I ripped the Band-Aid off and I was like, hey, I'm a copywriter. And the more I started saying it, posting it on social media, I feel like that's when I really started to own it. And I started to feel really good about it because it was like I was narrowing my focus down. I knew I could kind of go all in copywriting and really try to hone my skills, learn additional skills. And yeah, it made me feel good.
I was just offering blogs, and then I learned about copywriting, learned a little bit more what it was, and then kind of some specific things you can do as a copywriter, which sounded really, I'd never done before, but they sounded super interesting. So I just claimed it. I mean, which is kind of a little bit outside of my personality style, but I figured this is what I want to do. I need to be known for something and not known for, oh yeah, she does freelance stuff, but I'm not really sure what it is. It's like she does this and this and this and this and this. And even though you think that's going to bring in more, it confuses people. And it confuses you too, because you're not sure where to devote your energy and time. And so I really just kind of said it right then and there. I didn't have any copywriting clients. I only had one blog client at the time. It was bringing in $300 a month, but I was like, this is what I'm doing. And any takers, basically.
I think that journalism gave me really good research skills and taught me about the publishing world and magazine world and those kinds of things. So it's easier for me to talk to people about that. Or if that's what I was going to write, it would be easier to kind of break into that, I think. But I don't think you have to have a special degree in anything. I think if you enjoy writing and you are tenacious and you can pick yourself up over and over again, then you can be a freelance writer.
Initially, I feel like I was searching for the words to try to make myself appear to be confident than I was. But as I got into the practice of it through your course, I really learned just how to not only appear confident, but actually be confident. And so I don't think I got, well, actually, I know for sure I was not there until Write for Money. I have learned so many valuable skills that, I mean, it makes me feel speechless, which is very rare for me. I have learned so many valuable skills through Write for Money. And just the way that it's broken down is such an amazing experience to go through. Just the mindset work that I've done during this course has really changed the trajectory of my freelance future. So I'm excited about it.
Because of my background in journalism, I knew that people paid other people to write. And I also knew what the New York Times freelancers were making per story and what I was getting paid for freelance stories every once in a while. So I knew that it was valuable, and I knew that my time was valuable. And I always was kind of like, well, if I'm not doing this, what would I be doing at a regular job? And are those skills more important than helping people make money with their Facebook page, with their website, all that kind of stuff? And the answer is no, it would not be more valuable to them.
With one of those clients, I actually started email marketing. Was kind of just learning as I went. Thankfully, she used MailChimp, which I had just previously taught a month before. So I just kind of dove into her MailChimp, and she wanted me to use it, actually in the platform. So I was kind of proud of myself that I had already kind of done a little research and even sent one email for my business. So I jumped into her MailChimp, and she had several examples of emails that she would regularly send. And I just started going for it. And then I realized this is email marketing. And so I started to do a little bit of digging into what that is, but I definitely didn't know much about it. Had never thought about a sales page, never knew anything about the structure of a sales page, other than I'm sure it has something to do with persuasion and helping people to sell things. How do I do that? No clue.
I have absolutely overthought things, overanalyzed things throughout my life. I mean, you can ask my mom, about a time when I was 12, and she could probably tell you a story. But in business, it just harms you because you don't move forward and like push that needle forward by thinking about things. You just have to do it.
But no, I wouldn't know anything about anything with copywriting, I feel. If I did not position myself to be in your presence with courses, I mean, I needed that email sequence course to really feel more confident and comfortable about how do I present this to a client? What does this really look like? How can I do this well? I mean, I never wanted to just throw things together. I didn't want to, string people along and say, hey, I can do this when I don't really know how to do this. I really needed a blueprint. And I feel like it all started to click once I got in Write for Money, once I took your email sequence course, and then I said, oh, sales pages seem really interesting. Let me add that on too, because I really need to see the process. And now I feel like I have all the pieces of the puzzle.
People that are 6 and 7 figure earners, like they didn't get there by doing it perfectly all the way through. Like I'm not a 6-figure earner at this point yet, but I know that like you have to just take the action, like make decisions and go with them. Like don't look back, make the decision, choose the subject line, choose the blog title, choose the headline, whatever it may be. And if it doesn't work, like you can redo it. It's not going to end anybody's life, like the whole brain surgery example that you always give, Abby. I think people use like thinking about things and analyzing things as like a security blanket. Like, well, if I can get it all worked out in my head where it sounds perfect to me, then it'll be perfect once I put it out there. But that just paralyzes people. And that's paralyzed me for a million different things over my life. And I'm not going to say I don't ever do that anymore, but I've gotten a lot better from encouragement from mentors and kind of just following what people like. Where I want to be, I follow the people who are there and who are already there and just make a decision and go with it and not make it harder than it has to be. It's already kind of hard to be in business. Like there's hard parts about it. Don't make it harder on yourself.
After having my girls, I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to find any kind of work again because, as a lot of you all know, and as Abby knows and everything, after you have a baby, the world is kind of like crazy, and you're not actually sure that it's ever going to be this normal again. So I had a lot of fear about that. And so I think sometimes the reason that we take lower paying jobs is because we're just so afraid that there isn't going to be something else, or there are no other clients or anything like that. And when I start to feel that way, I go to the people that I admire. So I go check out what Amy or Abby's doing. I check out what Amy's doing. I check out what lots of other people are doing. And it's a good refresher for, hey, it's okay. It's going to be fine. There are plenty of clients, that kind of thing.
I've definitely had client experiences where I was afraid I was going to disappoint them. Mainly, those were clients that I probably shouldn't have been working with to begin with, because you kind of get signs along the way, like when you're talking to someone on a discovery call and maybe they're not super clear on what they want, but you're like, well, I'm gonna take them anyway because it's a challenge, or I need the money, or I don't want to say no to them. Like I've had all those reasons. And then trying to write for someone who doesn't even really know what they want is 100 times harder than it even sounds, because then you're just thinking, what if they don't like this because they don't even know what they want to begin with? I'm thinking I've had a client like that, and I submitted the work to her, and it took her forever to get back with me. And then when she did, she was like, "Did you rewrite this?" I said, "No, I haven't touched it since the first draft." She's like, "Oh, well, when I first read it, I didn't really like it, but I just read it again and it's great." And it's like, I did not change a single word. So I realized that, like, if my overriding thought is I'm going to disappoint this person, like, there may be a better client fit elsewhere out there. Like, because I know that I'm good at what I do, and I have plenty of happy clients in the past that help me prove that. But the clients that I've felt this overwhelming anxiety, like, I'm not gonna be able to please them. They're all clients looking back that I shouldn't have worked with in the first place.
I got my first 2 clients around January time. And the first client signed a 4-month contract, and the other client signed a year contract, which I'm still working with him. I was kind of fearful of what to do to kind of keep a client, and how do I present value to them that will make them want to continue with me. I think I lost that client in July. And this month, I already gained another retainer client who's paying $150 more than the past client. So now I'm like, okay, so this can happen. And this client also has signed a 4-month contract, but has already started telling me that she wants additional services. Already paid her first month, and we don't start till September 1st. Already given me all the things I need to start. So now I'm like, okay, this is not a fear. These things will happen. This is a business. People are going to come and go. And I just want to remain graceful throughout the process. I want not to be surrounded by any drama, just let everything just kind of unravel and fall where they fall, and just kind of keep moving, and not let that be a stumbling block, or not take that personally. Just realize this is a business. Sometimes things happen, and just keep going.
It's gotten a little bit better, but the imposter syndrome thing, especially when you start thinking about raising your prices and you know what other people charge, you're like, for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I even come close to charging what so-and-so charged? Because I know what she charges for this same thing. She's amazing. She's like, she invented the game. And who am I to even try to approach that? I've absolutely had those feelings. And even now, as my business is taking off in ways that I never even expected, and people like are asking me to do things, I'm like, why would anyone want me to talk to their group? Like, I have been copywriting for like less than a year. Whew. First of all, when that happens, I talk to my business coach and people that I look up to, because they will kind of kick me back into reality. Like, you deserve a spot at the table here. It doesn't matter that you haven't been doing this for 15 years. Like, you work hard, you have less than a years of experience and happy clients to show for it. And I just kind of have to, like, that's one of those things I can't overthink it. I have to just push through and stop overanalyzing. Well, what if they find out that I have literally only been copywriting since November and it's August? Like, that's not very long. I have to push that away, because if I don't, I'm going to end up saying no to opportunities that could, like, explode my business, explode my world, and take me to places that 2 years ago I would have never, even 6 months ago, never would have thought that I'd be in those places. Like, if I just let the imposter syndrome take over my life.
I feel like that might happen during the editing phase of a copywriting project. You are very confident before that. You go ahead and, crank everything out. And then it's like, oh, I need to now share it with the client and wait on their feedback and get their comments. And so I have definitely had a lot of practice with that over the last several months. And what I do is just take a step back I really want to focus on giving my clients exactly what they want. So in doing so, I have to really carefully review their comments and their feedback and just kind of take a step back, take it all in, and reevaluate and try to figure out, okay, how do I change this paragraph? And I just take it step by step. Like, let's not overwhelm. This is why I tend to do edits over 2 to 3 days. So I can take some time away, come back, look at it with fresh eyes, and then just take it step by step. And that is really working for me. And I realize that, I'm able to do this. So it's awesome.
Like, especially when you're writing copy for someone, if they don't know what they offer, and if they don't know who they offer, like really well know who they offer it to and what problem that they solve, it's going to be nearly impossible to A, write a good whatever you're writing, and B, please them, because they don't even know what pleases them yet. And I had that experience with the client. Luckily, I was not writing anything huge, but even the small writing projects I had for this client, I remember sitting, like, it was taking hours for doing simple things because I had no idea what she wanted. She didn't have any idea what she wanted. I remember telling my, like, and you guys, I'll be super honest, even doing the discovery call with this client, I told my husband, I need a nap after that discovery call. Like, just getting to know her, like, she was lovely, but just all over the place, had 1,000 different ideas, wanted all these things that would have cost her thousands of dollars, but in no way was it ethical for me to take that money from her for something that I knew that I wouldn't be able to deliver on because she wasn't there yet. So we started with these small projects, like things that should have been easy, but even those were like pulling teeth. I mean, I dreaded opening up my computer each day and working on those projects. For, like, you would laugh if you knew what they were. Like, they're so small things to write. That was a big red flag. She didn't know what she wanted. She even came back to me recently, was like, hey, I think I want a sales page for this thing. I'm like, no, like, you don't want a sales page for this thing yet. You're not ready.
Initially in my business, before I answer that question, I would just send out my scheduling link to like anybody that had any kind of interest. And I had a few time wasters that would literally schedule Zoom calls with me. And that happened maybe a good 3 times before I said, oh, this is not working, because I don't have that time to waste. I still work a 9 to 5. I still have 2 young kids. I have a husband. Like, if you're getting on a Zoom call with me, you need to be about 95-ish% sure that you want to secure services with me. Otherwise, we have not a lot to talk about. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just that I've got to value my time. So now what I've done is put a barrier between me and them, meaning that, I have like a little form or application process that they fill out first. And then I review that. And then based on that, I either send the scheduling link or I don't send it. And I kind of either recommend them to someone else or recommend that they try something else. So I have now that barrier up. And so now when I get on a call with someone who has passed that kind of application process, I kind of feel more ready for the call. I kind of know what to expect. I have a series of questions that they have to answer, even in the scheduling link. So they've gotten past the application where they answered some questions, and now we're at the scheduling link where there's more questions. And so I take those 2 pieces and I'm able to kind of control the conversation, value everybody's time, and just get to, the main thing, like, what do they need? How can I help them? And what is the timeline looking like?
So this was an Upwork connection thing. It was going to be like a $3,000 job to write literally 1 Facebook ad. He like worked in insurance, and the catch was he wanted me to go into his Facebook profile and set it up for him. And I'm like, okay, that's so easy. That's fine. So I sent him a proposal, and he was so excited to chat. And then he wanted to change our conversation time 3 times. So he canceled the first day, the second day, and then on the third day, I was like, if he cancels one more time, I'm done, which honestly, I probably should have done that earlier. But then the third time he came back and said, actually, I decided to go with another vendor I talked to yesterday. And so I was just like, okay. So if they're canceling, if they're flaky, that's what you can expect from communicating with them in their project. So pay attention. People will show you how they act and how they behave and that kind of stuff.
I would say another red flag is if you don't feel like you're a good personality fit with this client. One thing I have to remember is like, you need to remember is as a freelancer, like you're in charge. You get to choose who you don't do and don't work with. You're not being interviewed by a company to go become an employee and where it's not necessarily an equal relationship. Like as a freelancer, if you don't feel like the person is going to be a good personality fit, especially from that first call, it's not going to get better. Like, just like, you date someone and you have a terrible dating relationship. Well, if we got married, it would be so much better. That's like wrong. I've done the same thing with a past client, and the money was good and I needed money. And I thought, well, it's not that big of a project. It was a retainer. But it was not a good situation either. It would take me weeks to hear back from him. And then he was like, oh, I'm traveling for business. Like, okay, cool. We have like something due. I mean, there was nothing wrong with him. It's just our personalities and the way I work and the way he wanted to work were just not a match. And you have to pay attention to those things. I did not. I knew it. I knew it front and center in my mind, but I just thought it'll be fine. It wasn't fine. It was miserable. It really was.
So now I'm finding that my calls are a lot more efficient and a lot more structured. And I will say that part of that is still going back to the VA stuff that I was doing, because Lauren also had a discovery call sheet that I used to pull up with every VA client. And that really helped me to hone in on just the process.
The other thing is if you're talking to them and the entire time you're on your discovery call, they are asking about price, or they're asking about, well, how long does it take you to do that? And can you do it faster? Can you turn around like this? And can I have unlimited edits and that kind of stuff? Which, I mean, if you offer unlimited edit, great, perfect. But if they're asking for a lot up front and are really concerned about the price, I could tell you it's going to be a problem. They're those $20 for 2,000 words people.
So I would say there's been two big mistakes that I've made, and one of them has happened a few times. So apparently it's not a mistake if you keep doing it, but that was taking on clients that I should have said no to. I kind of have a hard time saying no, and so I didn't want the person to feel like I was insulting them by not taking them on. Or I felt kind of more on the desperate side for money or for clients or for the experience or whatever, or I wanted it to be a challenge. Like, hey, I can push past the sludge. That was such a big mistake. It was such a drain on my energy and time. And looking back, it was not worth the money that I made. Like, even if it had been triple that, you're supposed to be happy in your freelancing business. You're supposed to take on clients that you love and have fun. And, you're your own boss and you're doing your own thing. Like, why choose things that are going to make you miserable? If you want to be miserable, go get a desk job somewhere, making hardly any money and never seeing your family. Another one was like being afraid to charge actual money. I started out writing blog posts and I had no idea what to charge. I did a little bit of research and I settled on like $75 each, which is not terrible because I know some people pay way less than that, but people pay a lot more than that too for a blog. I mean, and so I just thought that, and I don't know, I felt scared to ask for several $100s a month for something that felt easy for me to do, but they wouldn't have been hiring me to do it if it was easy for them. They would have just been doing it themselves. And so I continued to just charge next to nothing for all the blog writing I did, for even my first handful of copy jobs with email sequences and sales pages. I just, and it's not about like, oh, I want more money. It's like cheating myself out of the value I was providing. It's not even about like padding my bank account more and having, getting new crap with all this money I had. It was like, I don't care about that at all. I care about like being compensated for the value that I bring and the time that I spend and the burden that I take off of my clients and the money they make from what I do for them. Like that's why you should charge. And if someone like says no to it, that's totally cool. They can find someone who charges less, but they will also probably find people who charge more than you too. So charge that money.
Something that took me a really long time to learn was when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So by continuing to spend all of my time writing $50 blog posts, I know that I missed out on lots of other things. So like come January, it really felt like I was starting over again because I had just had this work for 3 months. So that's another, is it worth your sanity and all the stress to then put you back in your business a month or however long?
So now I would just listen to my gut more and not feel like I'm ruining their life by saying, I think this isn't the best fit. And then also like have a backup plan, like have someone to refer them to. That like takes a lot of pressure off you because you're not just saying, sorry, no, bye, and then leaving them in the dust. Like you can say, this is outside of my area of expertise, or the amount of time that this would take is not something I can take on right now, or whatever you say, but have someone in mind or a few people that you can refer them to who are maybe a better fit. And that way you're still kind of like, going above and beyond a little bit, kind of putting a bow on it for the client, but you're not locking yourself into something that you already know on your first conversation with them is going to be a bad fit. I should have done that. I just felt too awkward to say no, like it was a personal thing, and it's totally not. They're in business. They've had people turn them down for business before, and they probably didn't take it personally. At least I hope they didn't.
So I think when you're first starting out, it's really a really good idea to sit down and talk to your spouse or your dog or whoever helps you make these decisions and say like, what is it that we need me to bring in? What is it that I would like to bring in? And just kind of ignore all of the like hype, for lack of a better word, around this sometimes, and just focus on what you need, so that you don't get yourself worked up over setting crazy goals. That would have been so helpful for me a year ago to just do it that way. So I would say get it right in your head about your abilities, because you're totally capable. Like if you can have a baby, you can have a business.
I would say start talking about it right off the bat. Even if you're starting a course and you haven't written a single thing yet or got a single client yet, tell people that you're a freelance writer. You don't have to exactly know what you're going to offer yet, but tell people that you do that. I would start asking for referrals right away. I mean, and you can kind of like, what I learned how to do is figure out maybe like just a vague idea of who your ideal client might be and go to them, especially if it's someone you already know, and be like, hey, I'm starting my freelance writing business. I like to work with so-and-so, and I like to do these things. Do you know anyone who might need that? And that is a great way to not only get the referral, but get that person to be interested in working with you. That is like a genius thing that I learned when I first started freelancing that worked really well. And if it didn't lead to something right then, I would reach back out after 6 months, after I've had some experience, had some clients, and had a better idea of what I actually did, and reach back out, and it paid off even months later to do that. So start talking about it. Don't be afraid. You don't have to act like you are this high level, like you don't have to act like anything you're not, but you have to say something, or no one knows anything. And how are you going to get clients if no one even knows that you exist, right? So that's first. I would say like try to hang out with people who are doing what you're doing and who understand what you're going through. It doesn't mean you have to like get a business coach, but there's accountability groups or Facebook groups that are, people who are writers or whatever the niche may be, and go there to, get support and encourage each other, bounce ideas off each other. I've learned an infinite amount of things, like totally invaluable information just from being around people that do what I do. In fact, I didn't even know what email sequences and sales pages and copywriting was until I went to like a 3-day event last year and sat down with someone, and she was like, "Oh, I'm a writer." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm a writer too." And like, "What do you do?" And she told me she did this. And I was like, "That sounds amazing. I want to write email sequences and so I want to be a copywriter." And like, I literally decided that day I'm doing that. Like, I learned what it was and I decided that's what I was that day.
And then as far as like the technical stuff goes, I would make sure you have just a couple really solid samples in the area that you think you want to work in. And if somebody says, wants to offer you a job outside of your area, make sure it's a paid sample or a paid trial, and take as much work as you can that's fair. Like, I know it's really tempting in the beginning to write 2,000 word blog posts for $20, but the experience is going to be fine. It's a good experience, but it will make you miserable and it will really kill your mojo if you keep accepting that kind of work over and over again. If you absolutely need $20 and you want to get started, sure. But like, you are worth more and your time is worth more, because if you think about it, all the time you spend freelance writing or working is time that you're not with your kids, not with your family, not watching Outlander or whatever your show is. So I always keep that in mind about valuing your time, because you are worth it.
I would say, like, do not do the distracting stuff. Do not think about a website. Do not even think about a business page on your Facebook. I know those take 2 seconds to create, but I did all those little administrative stuff from, like, I spent forever trying to figure out how to make a WordPress site, like, and trying to make it pretty. And that made me $0. Making my Facebook business page made me $0. Like, planning out, like, yes, eventually you can do that maybe, but like, focus on getting clients. That's what's going to get you money, and that's when it's going to get you experience. If you're trying to be a writer, don't worry about websites. Worry about websites if you're trying to build websites. Like, don't do those are all distractions. Those are all procrastinations, well-intentioned usually. What are some of the other things? Like, I just see people like, or like business cards. Like, first of all, no one even uses those anymore. We're all at home. What are you going to do? Mail them out? I guess you could do that. But like, don't worry about those little things that you think you need to have. Worry about getting clients.
Sometimes I'll also talk them through how the whole process would go. And that in lieu of experience sometimes makes them feel really good that you have a process and a system in place, so they know that nothing is going to jump out and scare them. I read a really good book, and I'm sure you've read something similar, that talks about when we're in business and when we're talking about money and that kind of stuff, we have like a crocodile brain that is very scared of getting hurt. It's just afraid of losing things. And that's the brain that takes over when these decisions are happening. So a lot of times, if you can just walk the person through the process, like, we're going to have a call, you're going to pay your invoice, we'll have another call. Like, they feel so much better. So those are the 3 ways that I attack the expertise thing. And then if they don't have a sample of what they're looking for, sometimes I can get away with wording things differently. So I had a client recently ask me to send them a sample of a certain type of blog post, which I didn't have. So instead, I sent them a couple of my journalism stories and said, this is an example of the caliber of storytelling you can expect from me. So instead of having the blog post, I was like, if you just look at this writing, you can see that I will be able to do what you've asked me to do. Otherwise, I would say, I'm so happy to write a paid sample for you. My rate for that is X.
Go the extra mile to impress your clients. And that doesn't mean give them twice the amount of work they asked for that you got paid for. That doesn't mean like turning yourself inside out to do that means like, don't miss your deadline. That means like, give a deadline, like tell them you're going to turn it in on the 5th when you know it's going to be to them by the 3rd. Like, your deadline in your head is the 3rd, but you're telling them the 5th. And look, you're turning it in 2 days early. How amazing is that? Like, tiny little things. Basically, if you make it easy for a client to work with you, that is a lot different than what they probably have dealt with if they dealt with freelancers. Like there's a lot of freelancers that have been around forever, even before like the whole internet thing. And a lot of them have a bad reputation, missing deadlines, having excuses, like kind of falling off the face of the earth, just totally disappearing and never turn, don't do that. It's really easy to give yourself a good reputation and quickly by doing like the bare minimum plus like tiny little extra things to just go above and beyond for them. That has led to so many referrals and so much continued like business from the same client by just making it easy to work with you. That's been a huge thing.
The first thing I would say is, why do you want to be a freelance writer? And if the answer is, I know that this is a way I can provide for my family and I love writing, then I would say you can do it. Obviously you have a good reason. Obviously you are driven to do it. And you, if you're serious about it, will not give up, because if this is the way that you're going to provide for your family, you're going to make it happen. You have a really good story about whether or not you're going to breastfeed Lior, and you couldn't read the instructions in Hebrew, and it was like, well, I'm not going to let my kids starve. So if that's where you're at, then I think you're going to make it happen, and it doesn't matter what your qualifications are at all. And the second thing that I would say is think of something where you consider yourself to be an expert. Like think about an area, if it's parenting, if it's pole dancing, I don't know, whatever. Think of an area where you think you're an expert, and then what makes you feel qualified to be an expert in that area, because there is no college for being a parent. And so if you feel like you're an expert in that, why? And like take a look at those places where you feel like you could lead a seminar or something, give a speech on it, and consider why you feel that way. And then understand that it's almost always that you learned and you had experience and you tried things. That same can be applied to writing. And you can even make that thing you are an expert in your niche. So you can definitely do it. You don't have to go to any kind of special school. You don't have to have any accolades. You don't have to have anything except a good reason why and some tenacity.
Building a relationship and approaching everything like I'm solving a problem, that was really like great advice, because it helped me with advertising my business. It helped me with my social media posts. And then another thing that I learned, of course, through you is the niche thing. I always feel like I say that word wrong.
We all feel like we say it wrong. It doesn't matter.
It sounds so funny. But you were the first person that kind of said, hey, this is what a niche is. This is kind of the process you take to figure out your niche. But then in the same breath, you also said, don't spend so much time on that you don't move on and actually do the things that need to be done to actually establish yourself in this world. And I was like, wow, that is really good. Let me figure this out. And not only did you explain that, but you showed me how to figure out the different avenues I could go in. I mean, that was a complete game changer, because I never even sat down before and thought about, who is my ideal client? Why are they my ideal clients? How do I reach them? Like, all of those things are starting to kind of click the more I spend in your courses and ask questions in your Facebook group. Now it's starting to really like give me that light bulb moment.
Okay, so a typical day is a little crazy with the kids in the morning. They're hungry all the time. I mean, all the time. That's a full-time job to keep them fed. So once you feed them, we utilize childcare at home, which has been a fantastic way. During the initial COVID stuff, my husband was sent home from work. And so he was home, 3.5 months. And so my business went crazy in that time, because I had built-in free childcare where I could just dig in, and I had some of my biggest months. I know not everyone has that story, so like I know that is somewhat unique, but when he did go back to work, in order for me to keep up that same pace, we hired someone to come in, not full time, but just a few hours, like 2 days a week. And so as soon as our babysitter's here, I come back in the quiet, I'm unavailable, and I, start with, things like, checking my emails or anything super important. No, I like go on, I keep like a list of what I'm going to do each day on my calendar and in my phone. For me, what's the best workflow for me is to do the quicker, easier stuff first, because I feel like I can have those quick wins. Like, okay, I have that done, and then focus on the larger things. When I have kind of a little bit of momentum from those smaller tasks that I had to do. Typically in the afternoon, I'm just with my kids. I don't really work when they're around because A, that's like nearly impossible, and B, I want to have that time with them. So when I have a big project going on, I will sometimes work in the evening just for a couple hours after they go to bed, especially now that I don't have as much time with the sitter. I just kind of have to move my schedule around. Like there were times when I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, which is not my favorite thing to do, but I'm not going to miss the deadline. I'm not going to tell a client I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then, oh, well, my kids didn't sleep great, so can I have a few extra days? Absolutely not. Like, I wouldn't even entertain that thought. I will lose however much sleep I need to lose to meet the commitments that I've made to somebody else and to myself. So like that's like super important, like the most important thing. And then I will honestly utilize a weekend sometimes if I have big projects going on. Like I'm not to the point in my business where I can only work like 3 hours a day and make six figures. I'm, in a place where I'm like gaining a lot of momentum, doing a lot of things, getting more visible. So it's requiring more of me. And that's just a season where I am in my business right now. It's not a pace I'm going to stay at forever. And then I rest. And recharge and watch Netflix and watch Frasier with my husband, and get that kind of time just for me, so that I can recharge my batteries. That's really important.
I have, they turned 11 months old yesterday, actually. So I have little babies, twin daughters. So typically I don't do any writing or business stuff until like 6 p.m. when they go to bed. So most of my day is pretty much my kids and taking care of my house and making sure that we eat and those minor things. So after 5:36 rolls around, I get to work. I'm sending out cold pitches, or I'm in Facebook groups commenting. I guess that I do that throughout the day. Like I'll comment on Facebook posts and groups, but sitting at my desk doesn't start until then. So then I'm doing like all of the emails, all of the writing that I have to do, lead generation, all that kind of stuff happens between like 6 p.m. and midnight probably.
Now that I'm actually back to work, what that looks like for me is a lot of organization in the evenings, a lot of project management. I've recently discovered some project management tools that really help me to organize all the projects I have going on. I'm using Freedcamp right now. I tried Trello and it kind of overwhelmed me a little bit. It kind of frustrated me. And I said, this is not what I need here. But when I did Freedcamp, I was like, oh, this is it. Like not even the paid version, the free version, that's all I need. And it's perfect. So now I can like arrange everything. My clients can upload what they need to upload. We can keep everything in a nice, neat place. So now that I am back to my full-time job, I'm still a mom, still a wife. I do a lot of stuff in the evenings after work. So I don't sacrifice time with my family. I have kind of like time blocks, like you say, that, works best. So I've kind of followed that, where I just, say from this time to this time, I'm going to spend time networking online. I'm going to make sure my social media posts are updated. So I tend to just do things in the evenings, towards the time when my kids are going to bed. My husband has been really supportive and instrumental so that, if he sees that I have to do some work for school or work for my business, he will step in and assist with bedtime with the kids and things of that nature. So definitely evenings. Initially, I was working a lot on the weekends, but now I'm kind of pulling back from that, and I'm realizing I don't really have to work on the weekends. I can kind of set myself up for success during the week, the same way I'm doing for my full-time job, apply those same kind of strategies so that I can still have some free time. So there's still days that I just don't do anything. So a typical day would be just going to work as usual, doing all of that I need to do there, picking my kids up from school, coming home, and usually I already have dinner prepared. I try to do it, maybe on the weekends, but if I don't, I'm, walking in the door, washing hands, and already preparing dinner. And so I would typically start doing things for my business probably around 6:30, 7 p.m. And typically do things from like 7 to maybe like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Initially, when I was off from my full-time job, I was staying up sometimes into the wee hours of the morning, just because I could. And that's when my juices were flowing and the house was quiet and I could just kind of dig in. And so during the summer, I was up to, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and was able to also sleep in because my husband was here too. So yeah, that's a day.
So mostly I'm working with coaches, consultants, and service-based businesses. I had one product-based client, and I fired him back in January. So working with them, and I actually also work with a lot of companies or groups that do complete launches for coaches. So they bring me in as their copywriter, and they handle the rest of the launch for the coach. And that's been really nice because I don't have to find the client. I don't have to talk to the client except to do our kickoff call. I just write, send it to them, and they deal with the rest of it. So that's been really, really nice. And I like that. But I also like working with coaches and consultants. I love learning. And so it's really fun to see what they're working on and how they're impacting people's lives. I think it's really fun that we're able to do this now. Like, now that we're not in the age of typewriters is what I mean by that. So I think it's a really fun industry. And then mostly I'm writing emails, sales pages, and the occasional case study.
I wish everyone knew like how lucrative freelancing can be. You can, depending on where you look, if you're like hunting for jobs and remote jobs, you can see super, super low rates that are like almost insulting or just straight up insulting. But if you really take ownership of your business, and especially if you specialize in something that's more of a premium service, you can really, you can decide what you're going to make, and you can decide who you're going to work with, which I love because I think we've all had a work environment where we didn't have a boss or greatest coworkers or bad hours or a long commute or whatever it may be. Even if you like the job itself, there's all those kind of things that come along with it that aren't great, that you're kind of sacrificing for. So with freelancing, if I want to just work a few hours, I can make my business work for that. If I want to, work a 30, 40 hour week, I can, but I certainly don't have to. I can decide how much I want to make and then get the clients to fulfill that. And then if I want to take some time, I can take that. I can, you can create passive income with certain things. I think people would just think freelancing is kind of like, oh, so you're just going to kind of, make a few hundred extra bucks a month, which you certainly can do that, but you can also make several thousand if you put in the work.
What I wish they knew is what I wish I knew. I thought it meant that everybody needs to just quit their full-time job immediately stay at home and just do this. And while that is probably going to be in my future, I realized that I could build a business while also working for someone else at the same time. And it all boils down to commitment. It boils down to organization, drive, ambition, and just figuring out a way to schedule it. So I wish I knew that freelancing can take on different lenses. Like it doesn't look the same for everybody. It's okay if, you know, you want to work a little bit longer in your 9 to 5 while you're trying to figure out if you want to do this full time. It's okay if you want to do it as a side hustle. It's okay. All of these things are okay. There's no one size fits all. And I think one of my trepidations with beginning my entrepreneurial journey is that I thought there was a one size fits all. I thought it was either you're all in, meaning you are doing this full time, or you're not. I didn't realize that you could have different levels to it and you can kind of ease into it. And it's okay if it's this way or that way. And you can still be successful. I didn't realize that. Being a freelance copywriter is making me realize I have other untapped skills that I'm not using that I need to use and that I want to use. And so now I'm starting to step out of that umbrella of I'm just a teacher, because I'm not. And so I feel that in the next year or so, I'm going to be making some brave decisions to kind of probably move on out of that and explore a different side. I mean, I don't mind saying my age. I'm 37. And so I'm reaching that I'm 40 years old kind of midpoint. And I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to say that I didn't experience life to the fullest. I don't want to say that I didn't give everything in my mind a chance. And so I feel like in the next year or so, I'll be making some courageous career decisions to kind of put myself on a different path and realize that that's okay. So I wish somebody would have told me that all of these things are okay. And it's okay if your journey looks a little different than someone else. You can still apply the same principles and you can still see growth and success.
Oh my goodness.